would most want you to know about him. What you all know already is he's a super patriot. When you look up super patriot in the dictionary, you find his photograph. He's been that way his whole life, and his exemplary life of service to this country is a good example, is the example. He's a 23-year Army veteran who retired as a lieutenant colonel in 1990. He was awarded a Legion of Merit for his years of service. Additionally, he was awarded 2 Bronze Stars for heroism in ground combat. Now, I used to help write military awards. Bronze Stars for heroism are rare. He has 2. He also has the Presidential Unit Citation and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry that he earned while serving with the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam. Among other things, he holds a Doctorate of Education, a Master's degree in Management Information Systems, and a Bachelor's degree in Fine Arts. You probably are most familiar with him in groups like this one. You probably read his e-magazine. You probably heard him on the radio. If you haven't run into Rich Swier on one of the media in this area, you haven't been paying attention, or you haven't been living here very long. What I think he would most want you to know about him is he's a conservative with a conscience. His sole mission is to promote conservatism and expose the dangers of big government and progressivism. And in that endeavor, he's going to enlighten us this evening about morals and the media. Please welcome Dr. Rich Swier.
Carry you around with me.
I don't charge much.
You got to talk to my wife. She doesn't believe all that.
She's not supposed to.
Thank you very much for having me, and I want to really, I'm humbled and honored to be here among my fellow patriots, particularly my friends from the Concerned Veterans for America, Americans for Prosperity, common law grand juries, and the militia. I was ready to go to Nevada. I was packed. I had my duffel bag packed. I was ready to head out there, but that's another issue. How many people have heard a journalist talk about morals? Well, this is the first time you're going to hear a journalist talk about morals. Let me ask you a question, a real quick question. How many people think the media is biased? Yeah, all right, you're all wrong. The media is not biased. The media is actually suppressing the news. And our government is actively working to suppress the media. That's a very dangerous situation. That's why you need groups like Concerned Veterans for America, and that's why you need groups like Americans for Prosperity. That's why the Tea Party is being attacked. That's why 9/12ers are being attacked. Because you're effective. You make a difference. I have a mission in life to report using a biblical perspective. There is no story that has been written or that you'll read tomorrow in the newspaper, magazine, see on TV that isn't told or foretold in the Torah and the New Testament. Every situation has been told or foretold. The only thing that changes is the name and the date. The same greed, the same corruption, the same power struggle, the same evil, and the same good. There's only one headline that has not been published yet. You know what that is? The second coming of Jesus. Or in the Jerusalem Post, the first coming of the Messiah. That's the only headline that hasn't been published yet. Every other headline has happened already. Now, so I can get this to work. Come on now, there you go. You got to wake up your apple. Oh, I went too far. Let me go back there.
There you go.
There we go. Okay.
All right, there it is. Now, let's see if I can just do it once. Come on now. You're not complete. All right. Anybody ever heard of the First Amendment to the Constitution?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. Why is it? It's the First Amendment. It was kind of important. They did it first. There were actually many more than 10 amendments when they were discussing all this, but they boiled it down to 10. This was the first. Why did they put religion first? Why did they mention religion first in the First Amendment?
Because that's what they came to this country to do.
Correct. Without freedom of religion, in other words, without establishing a central religion, or if you prohibit the free exercise thereof, you can't have any of the others. None of the others can exist. You can't have freedom of speech, can't have freedom of the press, you can't have the freedom to assemble like we are. You certainly can't have freedom to petition because government becomes God. Why would God want you to petition the government? Him or her. So religion is the first principle. I call it the first principle. Because without your ability to practice your religion, and I'm talking about a Judeo-Christian religion, I'm not talking about Islamic. A Judeo-Christian religion. There are differences in religion, by the way. There are good religions and bad religions. Okay? You, without being able to do that, without the free exercise thereof, none of the other things can happen. Okay. First, I decided to figure out how do I present morals in the media. So what did I do? I went to the book of Exodus and the Torah and took out the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are the basis of almost every law in the world. They are the fundamental underlying principles in every law-abiding nation. So, I'm going to go through the 10 Commandments very briefly, and then I'm going to kind of give a couple of examples. This is the first one. The First Amendment says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." We're going to have a demonstration on Thursday, June the 5th, about the United Nations. Okay? Now, I grew up believing, and I still believe, in Genesis. God created heaven and earth. He gave man dominion over the earth and the heaven and all the creatures within. But he also tasked us to use those resources wisely. He tasks us. Environmentalists believe the flip side of that. Man is an infestation on the earth. The earth is what we need to worship. The trees and the rocks and the birds and things. And science is the means of getting there. Even false science. If you ever hear anybody say science is settled, they're not a scientist.
Right.
They're either a politician or they are a fake scientist, or they're a bureaucrat from the EPA, or they work for the county government. The big issue with climate. There's three fundamental truths about the climate. And this is mine. You can believe it or not. Number one, the climate changes. We have morning, noon, night, summer, winter, fall. Gets hot, gets cold. Gets really hot, gets really cold. Gets not so hot, gets not so cold. The climate is cyclical. There are patterns in climate. And the last one is, there is nothing you and I can do by changing our behavior that's going to alter those cycles.
Right, that's correct.
There are people who absolutely worship that idea. That just by making you change your behavior, we are going to change nature and the laws of nature. Impossible, ladies and gentlemen. And journalists write this all the time. I don't. Craven images. Can you think of a craven image? We have become a nation of selfies. You know, the iPhone or the smartphone. You know, Mandela funeral.
Yeah, yeah,
White House.
yeah.
A nation of selfies. And I don't mean just the President of the United States. I mean, I have one relative that lives by selfies. That's all he does is go out and look for people who he thinks are important doing a selfie. You know, athletes, wrestlers, rock stars, singers, you know, politicians, well, not politicians really, but no, that's it. I mean, it's selfies. We've become a selfish and selfless nation, godless nation. And we have so many craven images that the only image that needs to be truly worshipped, we're not worshiping. The only image that we're not truly worshiping, we've replaced or supplanted it, and that's sad. Take the Lord's name in vain. Any heard any rap music lately? Probably the most denigrating, anti-woman, anti-family,
Anti-God.
pro-rape, pro-promiscuity, pornography. You know what's the biggest business on the internet? Pornography. The biggest business on the internet. The biggest money maker on the internet, pornography. I'm going to be going up on Friday and Saturday to a human trafficking conference in Tampa. You know what's the biggest human trafficking? Children. Children. And for what? Sex. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. I write about these things. Nobody else wants to write about those things. The wonderful people that contribute to my e-magazine write about this. Dr. Judith Reisman writes about it. Pornography. It's the bane of America. By the way, I took this photo and I took this quote because if you recall Ben-Hur, Judah Ben-Hur, the movie Ben-Hur, the outgoing centurion on the left is met by the incoming centurion to take over Jerusalem. And he says, how do you fight an idea? How do you fight people that won't give up? How do you fight that? He said, with another idea. And that's what you have, another idea. It was an idea that was handed down for millennia, but it was handed to us by our founding fathers. It was something every veteran in this room, by the way, how many veterans in this room? Thank you for your service to the nation. Every veteran swore to protect and defend that Constitution. That document is the key document. Without it, when it goes, everything goes. Sabbath. How many businesses are closed on Sabbath?
Chick-fil-A.
We used to have, when I grew up, we had blue laws. We had blue laws. You know, you don't go, you don't work, you rest. You spend it with family, you spend it with friends, You go to church. Okay? That's what you do. I was in Israel during Saturday, during Shabbat. You can't take an elevator. You can't do any work. You can't push a button to go to a different floor if you're in a hotel. What happens is they set the elevator and it goes up every floor and it comes down every floor. Because if a Jew pushes that button, he or she is doing work. Huh? Now that's good stuff. That's a blue law. That's a supreme blue law. It was an amazing experience because nothing happens. You praise God. They don't answer the phone. You don't do any of that.
No cook, no stove.
You don't do nothing, right?
Really?
Thank God for Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby. Many small businesses don't work on Sabbath. Many small businesses don't. The big box stores do. The Publix and the Walmarts, except for some. But most, and the government shuts down.
Yeah.
Except for essential services. Our military serves 24/7. You know, our law enforcement, certain agencies, but the government shut down. Sunday, no, I don't go to work. Isn't it amazing? Honor thy father and thy mother. I write about this a lot, and boy, I'm on so many. The Southern Poverty Law Center doesn't even like me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. I have a number of people that write about homosexuality. There's nothing gay about homosexuality. Do you realize in the state of Florida, actually in the county of Sarasota, 70% of the known HIV/AIDS cases are due to men having sex with men. The rest are women. Now, what the county doesn't decide or doesn't keep data on is how many bisexual men are having sex with women. Okay, that's something you could ask your county commissioner to kind of ring into the data. The same number is for the state of Florida. 70% of known HIV/AIDS cases, as young as 12 years old. Do you realize, Dr. Judith Reisman wrote a wonderful article, you can go look at it on my website. You realize that last year, 10,700 men in our military were raped by men. Did you read that?
No.
Did you see that in the major news?
Nope.
All data was given before a Senate hearing. Many of those were senior officers raping their male subordinate. Now, historically, that's reported rapes. Reported rapes. We know historically that only about 17% of all rapes are actually reported, which means somewhere in excess of 63,000 men were raped by men in our military last year. Florida passed a marriage amendment. There's an effort to get that overturned by a judge in the state of Florida. A number of groups have joined together, obviously not conservative groups, but there are a number of groups that have gotten together to try and overturn the Florida Constitution by legal fiat. They've been successful in California, they've been successful in other states, and they find a judge that will do that for them. Okay. I write about it. A father and a mother, if you want to stop poverty, if you want to end child poverty, you have a biological mother and a biological father with the biological children under the same roof. That ends poverty. Ends it. Why aren't, if progressives want to end poverty, that's all you got to do. Who is the most destructive, who is most destructive? Minorities, blacks. The black family is gone. It is gone. The white family's following close behind. Thou shalt not murder. The first thing that pops to most people's mind is abortion. Okay? Many of us in this room may believe that abortion is a form of murder, a legal form of murder. Who is more innocent than an unborn child? Is not the unborn child? And with science, we know more and more about when life begins, and it truly begins at conception. Scientists say so. You know, you get things going. It's not a gob of goo. It's a human being. Now, you can argue that. You can argue that. What I look at, one of the ways I look at it is that since 1973 Roe v. Wade, we've aborted somewhere in excess of 50 million American workers. American workers. These are people, men and women, who would be in the workforce today, contributing tax dollars, contributing to the economy. We wouldn't need to import illegals. We would have more than enough workers. And some of those ones aborted would have probably married and have children, and those children may be in the workforce by this time. They would be filling the coffers and helping us pay off our national debt, which is the greatest threat to our national security, in my mind. By the way, you know who started Planned Parenthood, right? Margaret Sanger?
Yes.
You know, she was a big fan of a thing called eugenics. Anybody know what eugenics is? I'm sure you do. You know where the idea of creating a master race started? Yeah, it actually started in New Jersey. The first laboratory, the first official laboratory to begin recording those who are infirm was in New Jersey. You know who funded that? 2 people. Huh? Rockefeller